Hello everybody, my name is WizThrift. I'm also known as Colton, but I am here today with a very special guest, DM Macca, or Macca the DM. Sorry, I messed it up already. But
That's so good.
could you give yourself an introduction?
Yeah, so as I've just been introduced, I'm Macca. Most people know me as Macca the DM from Twitter. I am the DM and kind of project manager for Check These Out. It's a D&D 5e and soon to be Vampire the Masquerade streaming group on Twitch. And I also have my own TTRPG talk show called Macca Unchapped.
Yeah, no, it's all really good content. I haven't had much time to listen to Check These Out because there's so much stuff I gotta listen to, but yeah. I've listened to most of Macca Unchapped, and it's very interesting. Actually, my first question: what does Unchapped mean? I'm just I'm just an American dude, so I don't really know.
It's a long story. So when I first got into the TTRPG space, I joined Hope for TTRPG's Discord server. You can find Hope's stuff on Twitter. Yeah. And it's a Discord server where a load of creators get together and kind of help each other. And there's like 1,500 people there. And I met like Maps and Quests and Double DM Pod and Hamilton from Dragon's Duel. And we just said, hey, do you know what? We're all DMs, right? Why don't we all just go in a game together and be players? And someone called Bravin from DM Chronicles, who's an amazing DM, was like, hey, I'll DM for you, but let's put a twist on it. Let's all be suburban, like middle-class people that are all rogues but don't actually do anything roguish. And so I was a sailor. I actually got my hat. I was like a sailor from the yachting club. I think we were trying to have a disguise to sneak onto a boat, and I was like, can I just find some like assless chaps or something and then wear those? And he was like, hey, roll a d20. So I got a natural 20, and he was like, yeah, there's a pair of chaps in there. And it just, for some reason, people found it hilarious, and now my whole persona's around Unchapped.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
No, I recognize the hat. I'm kind of disappointed though, Macca. I don't see the mustache. Like the only way I've seen you on Twitter is with the big black mustache.
Big mustache, yeah. I'm trying to grow it. I'm hoping to one day hit puberty. So.
Man, that's funny. No, that's hilarious though. I love the idea. I mean, there's a lot of those memes about like a bunch of dragons sitting around and playing like Suburbs and Humans or whatever. But I love the idea of like, that's hilarious. That's really funny.
Yeah, it was a fun game, and it's kind of started everything. Like before then, we were doing good and we were kind of progressing and doing better than I expected, but then once the beige, you call ourselves the beige gang, once that hit and it just kind of resonated with people, every one of us just exploded and we were like, okay, cool, this is awesome. So I just ran with it.
That's super cool. No, I think that's where the most organic and the best like either brands or things come from is when maybe it doesn't make sense at all, like if I didn't ask you I wouldn't have known, but like I think it's knows. That's super cool. That's awesome. Well, I mean, you mentioned, and I've heard from your podcast that you were a pro wrestler before, and you spent some time in that. Do you think that being a pro wrestler that has kind of like influenced your comedy and your showmanship?
I think so, definitely, because I've never been trained classically to do any voice acting or any sort of improv or anything, but in pro wrestling, and I'm going to just like pull down the curtain here.
Please.
It's predetermined quite a lot, so you kind of know the outcome of the match most of the time, and what you do before a match is you plan 7 points, right? So it's like the intro and the lockup, and then the good guy stuff, the bad guy stuff at the end, and so on. And but everything in between those big points is improv, and so you have to think on your feet, and you have to be able to communicate and kind of work with someone without any planning. And so I think it definitely had some sort of impact, and the ability to speak publicly. And also I was a comedy wrestler too. So I used to do stupid stuff. Like I used to wear like a man's thong, and when I was up the top rope, the wrestler would pull down my trunks and show off the thong, and everyone would laugh. And so it definitely has helped. Yeah. And I think I use the same way that I used to plan a wrestling match with those 7 points. That's how I plan each of my D&D sessions. So I have the beginning, and I have the good guy stuff, the bad guy stuff, and because we don't just play D&D and stream it. We put on a show. Now again, it's all improv, and none of it's pre-written, pre-scripted. Yeah. But it is produced for entertainment rather than, hey, just watch us play D&D like 50,000 other groups.
Yeah. That's awesome. No, I mean, I was when I was listening to your podcast and I heard that you're a pro wrestler, I was like, why aren't there any like subclasses based off pro wrestlers? Like either a barbarian or heck, even a bard. I mean, even there's so much you could do with that. Have you ever thought about doing that before, or any of your other friends that do a lot of homebrew?
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of friends, as you probably know, that do homebrew stuff. But I've spoken about this actually. I was on Homie and the Dudes podcast recently. Bodhi and Bodhi's dad. I forgot the name of, but they're really into UFC. And they asked a lot of questions about the wrestling too, and we said the same exact thing. And then I think Bodhi is working right now on a 5e supplement that will involve grappling and moves and holds and stuff like that. And I think this is why I got into being a DM, because I think it was my first ever D&D session. I was a player and I was a barbarian, right? And so I grappled somebody because I wanted them to go away, and I was like, can I just like get them in a hammerlock, and if they try and move, I'll hurt them. And the DM was like, well, it's not really in the rules, so I guess no. And straight away I was like, well, I guess I want to be a DM now, and change it, make those rules.
That's awesome. I think there's sometimes when just a basic skill check against the other person just doesn't do it. Especially for your experience with. I'm sure tons of moves, whether they were staged or not, of how to make it look good or how to actually hurt somebody. So I think there's definitely room for a lot of homebrew or just different ideas for that, because it can be a lot more fun to be like, oh, I pick them up, spin around, and throw them, or I suplex them or whatever.
Yeah. Definitely. If it can happen in real life, then why don't we have ruling for it in D&D? And I know that Rule of Cool exists, and I know that you can homebrew a bunch of stuff, but some people prefer to have it written down and prefer to have a rule set, even if it is outside of the core rules. And there are many other TTRPGs out there as well. It's not just for D&D. I know that there probably already is a tabletop role-playing game out there that is specifically around the wrestling and that sort of fighting. But yeah, it's definitely going to come out. Trust me. I think Bodhi is working on it right now.
Good. And is that going to have subclasses in it for like the barbarian or whatever, or is it just like a set of grappling rules or wrestling rules?
I think it's a bit of both. Okay. I think it's probably going to be a subclass probably for the fighter, but it would probably also have a load of just grapple effects that you can do. And I'm probably revealing a bit too much, so I won't say too much about it. But it is coming. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, this won't go out for a couple weeks, so you can check with him just to make sure, and I can edit it out or whatnot. So
no, we spoke about it on their video, so I'm sure it's fine.
Okay, cool. Sweet. Well, another question, and this kind of goes into the last thing we just talked about, but what do you think D&D is missing? Like, take out like all the homebrew stuff, just like the basic like 5th edition with all the expansions from Wizards. We're like 5-6 years in now. What do you think it's missing?
That's a tough one, and I think it's a tough one because there are so many different ways to interpret how to play D&D, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, there's no right or wrong way to do it, right? Mm-hmm. The way I see it is, as long as everyone at your table is having fun and so are you, then you're doing it right, okay? Yeah. But for me, what it's missing is I don't think combat's that well refined. And I know that in earlier editions, which I'm not familiar with at all, that the combat was much more in depth and there was 55 million thousand rules for everything. Yeah. And so it was more of a slog. Mm-hmm. But I revel in the role-playing aspect of it. And I revel in the kind of exciting, descriptive way we do our moves and stuff. Yeah. But the second you get above 5th level and you start to have enemies with like 200, 300 health, and your characters as well can sometimes go up to 100 health or whatever more, and it just ends up being a stat block versus stat block, kind of just a slog. So I think it's missing exciting combat. That's just my take on it. I know that you can homebrew some stuff, and we do. We lower the health of enemies and increase the amount of damage they can do so that fights are more exciting and they're over quicker. But yeah, that's my personal biggest gripe with D&D anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean I'm on the same train as you. I am huge into the role play. I'm trying to better my combat because I am a dungeon master and we've been playing this game for almost 2 years, but it's still a struggle for me. So I'm glad that I'm not the only one that sees it that way.
Yeah.
So.
2 years is how long I've been playing D&D full stop.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, I started with Call of Cthulhu, which love those because those are primarily role play, because it's all about madness and all that. But yeah, I started D&D in high school and 3.5, and I didn't play too much 3.5, but yeah.
Yeah, we just recently finished a 4-parter that was Call of Cthulhu set,
Nice.
that was adapted for 5e by our Friday sort of DM Sam, and that was really good. That was really interesting. I'm a bit of a dinosaur. It takes me ages to learn a new system.
Yeah. No, I think especially if like, so did you play any other TTRPGs before D&D, or is D&D like your first forte into any role playing games?
That's literally it. Like when I was a child, I painted like Warhammers and had like 1 or 2 matches, which is similar, I guess. But then when I think it was I was at work, right, and there was a group of us that kind of interested in like JRPGs or RPGs, video games, and this one guy who's like the mega nerd, right? He's into like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, D&D, like everything super nerdy, which is awesome. And he was like, "Hey, let's play D&D." And I always thought, it's this really stuffy kind of stats versus stats, big books and all this. And I didn't think I was that into it. And he showed me a video that was obviously Critical Role, and that's how most people nowadays get into D&D. And I saw them having fun and improvising, and I was like, hey, that sounds cool. So we went and played, and I think after a couple of sessions, he just left and was like, I don't want to DM anymore. I want to be a player with a different group. So I DM'd and just carried on from there. And that's my only real TTRPG that I've played. I mean, I've played Monster of the Week once, and that's it.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're a dinosaur. I think going from one system that you're so familiar with, or I mean, you say you're not that big on the rules, so I don't know if you're actually familiar with 5th edition, but going
right, you heard me say that. Yeah, it's true.
You've said it a couple times.
It's true. I don't know the rules that well. I know the basics, and that's I think all you need. Like, also I play with people that are DMs. I enjoy playing with DMs as my players, and so if I don't know the rule for something or I can't be asked to look it up, I'll just go, hey, what is it? And they'll tell me.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. Like, I mean, it's a collaborative storytelling experience. So I like, even like my players, they either haven't DM'd or they haven't done it for a while, but they will bring up stuff like, oh yeah, hey, there's a lot going on right now. If I forget something, like, let me know. Or if you think something's unfair, like, let's talk about it. I think that's one of the most important parts, is the communication between Dungeon Master and players.
100% agree with that. I think it is, if somebody says that, if somebody wants to achieve a thing and it's not game breaking, it's just a little bit outside the rules, like if they want to really push forward and do an extra action, and because they really want to do this thing, I'll be like, okay, you push through the barriers of all the fatigue, and you end up doing this super cool move, and you get your reward, and everyone cheers and everyone's super happy. Yeah. But you take a point of exhaustion. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
And then everyone goes, wow, that was so cool, and it doesn't break the game at all. I'm just going, okay, it's better for the game, it's better for the players. Let's do it. The rules, they're just guidelines. Like said.
And a lot of people, they bring up like, oh, Jeremy Crawford said this, or oh, Chris Perkins says this. Like, well, they're not my dungeon masters. Like, yes, they design the games, they write the stuff, but they're not my dungeon masters. Like, I love to hear from them. I'm glad they're in the community, but like at the same time, this is our game. It's not about, people don't watch to see if you're following the rules or not. They don't watch for that. They watch to enjoy it, to have fun, and to be part of a community. Like that's the most important part.
You're right. Yeah. People watch it to be entertained and have fun and laugh along with you or whatever. But if you do something wrong that's outside the rules, there are people that go, just so you know, you've done that little bit wrong, and I'm like, okay, cool, fine. Yeah. Thanks for your feedback.
Yeah. There are those people, and they will always be there. I think it's just because they care so much. Like they're like, oh, this is my thing. I want to make sure they know they're doing it wrong. But yeah.
Did you know? Yes, thanks. Yes, we did.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, man. Well, another question I had for you. What's your favorite spell?
My mind immediately went to Wish because I'm an idiot, but it should really, I suppose. Find Familiar I really like. Okay, and I really like Find Familiar for a bunch of reasons, and the main reason is the help action, because that can help the entire team. Like if you have, let's say you summon a familiar and it's like an owl or something, and if you have nothing to do on your turn and you're thinking, oh, I've done my stuff, you can just make your owl go and flap in the enemy's face and therefore give the help action to the next person that attacks. And that is so invaluable for free, basically, just by having a familiar. You can, it's the best spell. It just is.
Yeah. Well, I'm currently playing in a game where I'm an Eldritch Knight, and I wanted, like, he was an ex-soldier who got into this like pact with a genie, decided to be an Eldritch Knight instead of a warlock, but he's used his familiar since the very beginning. And one thing I've learned from playing this character, and yes, I'm the frontline tank. I do tons of damage and whatnot because I'm a fighter, but at the same time, like, I've learned how to be more supportive and helpful, because that help action or the, like, just distracting the enemy, it is so helpful. Like, I think people forget, like oh, I can't do damage, or this they passed a spell save. It's like, I think people forget, like, hey, you can be helpful to other people. It's actually going to make the action economy and everything better if you just look out and try and be supportive, even if you are the tank. Or
we did it in my game. I started off as an Eldritch Knight. The game I play in on Monday, Johnny's our Monday DM, and he's really good at working with us players. And my guy's like a skeleton. He's a skeleton, so like basically just a de-skinned reborn. And I had the background feat of the background of the knight, right? So I had the feat where you have the retainers. The little guys you can sort of order about. And Johnny was like, hey, if you're undead, or if you've been a skeleton for so long, why don't we have your retainers as ghostly, and they'll just like appear and be apparitions.
That's cool.
And I thought, that's awesome. And then I said, well, how unrealistic is it that my familiar is my squire? You know what I mean? So my familiar can be a humanoid that just appears and is, that can't do anything in combat, can't help me in combat, but he can like carry stuff, or he can like press buttons, or he can distract the opposition. And now we have this amazing DM and player sort of improv where I'm talking to my squire and the squire's responding, and he's my familiar. So there's so much versatility you can have with just a simple spell like that. Well,
I mean, like, the flavor that you can add to a game just by saying, well, first of all, you're a skeleton knight, and that's super cool. Like, really I never would have thought about that. It's just like a little bit out of the box, because the reborn, that's a thing. But then the ghostly stuff and your squire, like, that's so cool. This is why I love talking to other people, is because, like, you think of, I never would have thought of this stuff, like, ever at all. So thank you for this, like, wonderful information. It's awesome.
It's awesome. It's been loads of fun, and people seem to love it. People that watch. There's so much artwork. Like, fans have made artwork of my character who wears like golden armor, and he's really socially awkward because he was in a coffin for like thousands of years, just waiting to be woken up. And so when he's around people, he doesn't say the right thing. I also dumped charisma and intelligence. Charisma and wisdom I dumped. So his intelligence is like 18 because Eldritch Knight. And so is his strength. So he's like super smart, super strong, but he's really bad at talking to people, and he's always says the wrong thing because wisdom low. So it's been so much fun playing him. It's my favorite character I've probably ever played.
Does he have a voice?
Of course, it's Sir Dendel. He's a knight.
Perfect. That's awesome. That's
just leaning on my Britishness.
A posh British skeleton knight.
Of course, I do say.
That's really fun. Well, one of my last questions for you, Macca. Well, actually, where does your name come from? This is something I just thought of. What are the origins of Macca?
So it comes from my surname, right? So it's a nickname for my surname.
Gotcha.
And my dad had the same nickname as me, and we always, I worked at the same place as my dad, like for our day job, and they ended up calling me Macca, and that's how everyone knows me. So wherever I've worked as well, because my first name's Ross, and I don't like it so much because when people call me it, I feel like I'm in trouble because that's the only time people don't use it. And so everywhere I've worked, there's always been someone else called Ross in my team. So rather than just it being confusing, I just go by Macca the whole time.
Yeah.
And so that's just what people know me as now.
That's cool. That's funny. I love nicknames. So I was just like, it's such an interesting name. I was like, where does it come from? So cool.
This actually goes back to wrestling, right? There was a guy called Alex Shane, and Alex Shane was like the Pied Piper of British wrestling. Everyone that came from Britain and went to America or Japan or wherever basically went through Alex Shane. And he said to me, the key to being noticed is being unique and being different and doing stuff that people have never seen before. And so something as simple as having a name like Macca that is really, really unique, people remember. And so I've just adopted it from there, really.
That's fun. No, I think that's always kind of been my philosophy in life. My wife hates the way I dress because like I wear pink hats with giraffes on it or just like whatever. My reason is I like people to remember me. Whether it's just passing on the street or like in the store or whatever, like they'll probably remember that weird guy wearing the pink hat or he's wearing shorts and a coat or whatever. I don't know. I dress weird, but yeah. So I love that philosophy.
Yeah, that's always the way. I don't, I'm an attention seeker at heart. Let's be honest. It just is what it is.
You're an attention seeker? I never would have guessed.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. Yeah. I would love one day to see Macca unhinged. Just see like completely like no cameras, nothing. Just see how you would be like.
You really don't. We have a messenger chat. Me and the Check These Out guys. And obviously we've got the Unchapped kind of influencer group that I'm part of, and all of that stuff is just the filter's completely off, and some of the stuff that we talk about is just so insane. But it's all wholesome stuff, there's no red flags, but it's just the inner workings of my brain, because I don't sleep that much. I think I mentioned to you I don't sleep at all, so my brain's always just going with like 50,000 ideas. And I just shotgun blast them to my friends, and they all end up going, "Wow."
Do you have ADHD? Is that something that you have?
Yeah, so I have ADHD. I have OCD, which is in the form of like intrusive thoughts, which manifest as vocal tics, which I'm able to keep under wraps if I'm super focused like I am now. But the second I'm off this, I will just be a mess of just shouting random stuff.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's me.
Fun. No, that's really fun. I love it when people, I cared for so long about what people thought that I kept a lot of those things in, or I just, was too afraid to say certain things. But the day that I did realize no one cares,
No one cares.
No, like they may talk about you, or if they're like a coworker, like whatever, but like no one really cares. Like just be yourself, have fun. Like, that's the most important part.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. At the end of the day, you've got what you've got, right? So when I every time something happens in my life that I don't like, right? I ask myself a simple question: can I control it? And if the answer is no, why worry? Because if I can't control it and I can't change it, all I can do is make the best of that thing for me, right? So that's what I do. I don't dwell on people not liking it. When you put yourself in the social eye like this, so people can comment on you or give you feedback or talk about you or whatever, you just have to go, okay, cool, that's your opinion. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's something that I don't necessarily agree with. It's fine.
That's awesome. No, I definitely agree. Still things I'm working on, but like I definitely agree with that. But one of my last questions for you, Macca, is do you have like a role-playing or like dungeon master philosophy, like something that you will die on that hill, or that you always will do because it's to you personally?
It definitely goes back to rule of cool, really. I suppose it always rolls back to the same thing, isn't it? Is if it makes your players happy and it doesn't break the game, you know what I mean? Like it's something completely unrealistic, like just randomly being able to fly for no reason at all. If it's something that doesn't break the game at all and it makes your players happy and it improves the story for everyone, just do it. Don't be hung up on this is my story I want to tell, because if you're only really doing it for your enjoyment, go write a book. But if it's the players around the table and you know it's going to make them happy, and you have to bend a little bit of what you want, or you have to kind of improv around what they want to do it, because you'll benefit in the long run. And that's the way IDM. It's not right for every table. Like I say, some people it's, you know, they need that structure, and that's cool. Yeah. But for me, I will always die on the hill of try it and let's see.
Yeah. No, I
the sort of yes and philosophy.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And really, when you think about it, as long as you don't give your players a weapon that can do 10d6 extra damage or whatever, you know, there really aren't too many things that can break the game, like, or they are already in the game, like the wish spell, and then you can just tweak it. You know, there are things in there that can break the game. So like, really, I think it's funny when people are so worried about the rules and certain things. Like, oh, that's too overpowered. Well, it's like, yeah, but like, how often are they going to actually use it? You know,
like I do this. Sometimes players find it difficult to write a decent backstory, or sometimes I get it when people don't want a backstory, they want the game to be the backstory. That's fine. But if they have a character that they want to be some sort of hunter from the forest and all this, okay, let's think of a backstory. Why are they where they are right now? And let's talk about them, so that they're not just somebody you're playing. They are an actual character with like wants and needs and stuff. And some people struggle with that. So I say, if you come up with a decent backstory, I'll let you start the game with an uncommon magical item. And suddenly they write decent backstories, you know, because they want that item. It's their choice. They can choose whatever item they want. And that forms part of their backstory. So how did you get this cool magical item? Is it an heirloom? Is it something you just discovered? And it's uncommon, so who cares? They're going to get that by level 5 anyway. So, and that seems to work wonders.
That's a good tool, because like players love magic items. I don't care who they are, they love magic items. So that's I'm gonna use that. That's a good tool right there. That's awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, Macca, I mean, that was my questions, but I mean, it has been just such a pleasure to talk to you. It has been such a fun time, and you're a pretty interesting person, I'd say. You're kind of a crazy dude, but
yeah, that's what they say. But as I always try and the main thing I'm trying to do is help as many people as I can, right? For my whole entire life, I've always tried to do that. And I always say to everyone, there's no point in having a platform if you're not going to help the people around you. So if anyone that's listening to this isn't familiar with who I am, you can come hit me up on Twitter at Macca_the_DM. And just drop me a line. I'll always make the time to respond to everyone that comments me and messages me, and I'll help you as much as I can. So that's all
I can testify to that. Even if your schedules are different or whatever, he will make time. He will answer. So, and that's one thing that I really appreciate, is when even people that have, you know, thousands of followers or whatnot, they will respond to somebody who has like 60-something followers. So I appreciate it.
I'll do my best. Once I get to the point where I'm Matt Mercer's level and I'm like, you know, 800,000, then it'll be a bit more difficult. But for now, I can, I can do it.
Yeah. Well, you got a busy schedule, so you're doing the best you can.
Well, try.
Macca, thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure to talk to you and learn from you, because you say you've only been playing for 2 years, but you definitely have a lot of insight and wisdom that I think a lot of people wish they could have. So thank you again.
Well, thanks very much. And it's been fun. So I look forward to coming on again next time.
For sure. Well, hey, have a good night, and I will talk to you later, Macca.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.